Hello, everyone. Welcome to the H5 Virtual Education Series. Today's webinar, entitled Automate to Accelerate, Streamline Privilege Workflows with H5 Matter Analytics, is presented in partnership with Oasis. Our speakers today are Jason Richard, Vice President of Products at H5, and Christine Porras, Director of Technology Solutions at Oasis. Jason and Christine, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Patrika. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for the webinar today. I'm Jason Richard, VP of Products for H5. And if you're not familiar with H5 is an organization that's been providing analytics and search expertise and technology to organizations for close to nearly 2 decades now, helping organizations solve a lot of challenges in the realm of eDiscovery, investigations, review, and other data management challenges. I'm joined today by Christine Porras of Oasis, and she's going to be lending her experience both on the side of privilege review, but also their extensive experience at Oasis with H5 Matter Analytics is one of our large customers. So Christine, you want to share some details about yourself?
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Patrika. Happy Friday, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you. I'm Christine Porras, Director of Technology Solutions at Oasis. I started in this industry in 2001. I've always worked in law firms, legal fields. Oasis is my first vendor. And really throughout all of my career, I've always dealt with privilege logs. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart, even though I know that it was extremely painful to work on privilege logs during that time. At Oasis, we brought on Matter Analytics about 2 years ago, and we've had a lot of adoption for it. It's a great tool. It's integrated to Relativity. All of our partners and their clients love it. And it's something that, because the application is really intuitive and thought out so well, that all of our partners and clients enjoy using it, and they're able to move their projects forward quicker because of the features that it has.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Christine. And we're going to deactivate video. We want to do a quick introduction over video just to meet everybody. But we're going to move over to the presentation to keep an easy focus on the slides that we'll have for you, as well as the product. But again, we're very happy to have you here with us today. All right. Okay. So in terms of the presentation today, we have a great agenda for you today. We're going to start off with a quick audience poll, which is going to allow us to gain some insights from the audience about your experience when it comes to priv screens and some of the documents that get into your priv logs. We'll show you that in just a second. We're also going to talk a little bit about privilege review challenges. So Christine's going to share some of her experience there, and some of the things both from a data and human perspective can really present some challenges on the priv review side. Then we're going to talk about leveraging advanced analytics, what H5 Matter Analytics is, talk about some of the ways that we can do some really interesting things on the priv review side, given some of the new capabilities we have with our privilege analytics capabilities. We're going to do a live demo, and then we're going to move over to Q&A. And if we have a little bit of extra time, we're going to show you something else that's coming soon ahead of the Q&A related to a new advancement in priv log development. So anyway, more to show you there. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our polls. All right, so the first question we have for you is, what is the typical percentage of responsive documents returned from your privilege screen as potentially privileged in your review? So this is about those name lists, the keywords, the domain lists. What is that generally returning back for you in terms of the potentially privileged data set in your review? I'll give you a minute to respond to that. Okay. All right, let's see what we've got here in terms of the results. All right, so 10 to 25% leading the charge here. So those are some good details, and it looks like some of you may not have as much experience there or don't have a good handle on that today. But this is really helpful. I think this helps illustrate a lot of the review volume that's coming back from these privilege screens. So the next poll we have is about what actually ends up on the privilege log. So what is the typical percentage of responsive documents that actually make it into your privilege log in an average review? And obviously, no privilege review is exactly like another, but curious to see your inputs here. Okay. All right, let's take a look and see how these two numbers compare. So it looks like in terms of the number of documents that are ending up in that privilege log, the leader here is 5 to 15%. So there's a little bit of a range there, but this is helpful. And so, ultimately with the privilege screens that are I think used on many matters, there's room for improvement in terms of being able to help increase the amount of, first preserving recall, make sure that you have very strong coverage, but also looking at ways to continue to narrow down the review volume that goes into that second pass review. So thank you, everybody. That was helpful. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the common challenges that occur with the privilege review itself. So I'm going to hand it over to Christine to talk about some of our challenges here. First, to focus on some of the data challenges.
Thank you, Jason. So we know that there's a lot of challenges in just getting started with your privilege review, and one of those is the name variants. With name variants, we're looking at there's a lot of different name variations that oftentimes include things that you haven't accounted for. So trying to figure out all of the different domains, the different ways that people are being referred to, or the different email variations that your custodians have within your data set can be very challenging, and in turn very time consuming to try to figure out what those are. Then we have nuanced expressions. When you're reviewing your documents, it's not customary really where you're going to see inside of conversations where it just says that people are just disclaiming, this is privilege because of blah, 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 right? A lot of the times there's a lot of the conversations are really nuanced. And so the legal concepts, while they may be there, it's going to be very difficult and time consuming, and to just, run searches, and then you're still going to have to review them and try to figure out actually what's in there because of all of that nuanced expression. Then we have surprise parties. And again, this really, it comes hand in hand with that name variance. If you don't really know what domains or what names are within your data set, it's going to be difficult to streamline your review when you have, there we go. It's going to be very difficult to streamline your review when you have these surprise parties that end up showing up inside of your data set and then enter into your privilege log. We have false positives. This is one that really I've dealt with so much. I mean, all of them really, but this is that one biggest pain point really, because a lot of the times you start with a privilege search and you've isolated those documents, and then your review team comes back and it's, well, I've got all this boilerplate language that has these really broad terms, and all of these false positives that are coming back make it really difficult for reviewers to actually find privileged information within their document set. So all of these different challenges is just posing the issue that we have nowadays, where it's really very difficult to be extremely accurate when finding privileged documents. And it's also extremely time consuming and expensive to throw more bodies at it or run more searches, because at the end of the day, trying to balance that can be very difficult. And that's why privilege logs take so much time to perfect. And there's, a lot of different parts that go into creating that final privilege log that you end up having.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. And now we're going to take a little bit of a look at some of the human challenges when it comes to privilege review.
So with this one, I mean, in conjunction with the last slide, there's the linear costs. And again, this isn't just the hours of review, in my opinion. It's really also about like the privilege log and all of the different steps that it takes to create that log really touches a lot of different people within the case team. And that, of course, then makes it extremely expensive. It's a very expensive type of review. Inconsistency. This one's really big. One is trying to get everybody on the same page in regards to what those privilege reasons really are, right? And to come to an agreement about that in the beginning, even before that privilege review happens. But then when you have all of these inconsistent coding and inconsistent results, it again makes it very difficult to streamline the review and to keep costs down. Delays, right? A lot of the times, like I mentioned before, you've got your priv search, you've isolated those documents, but then they're not being really looked at until after your first review is done. And that then, of course, delays your second review. And so being able to speed up that process can be very difficult. And again, we're pretty much between my previous slide and this slide. It's costly. It's very costly to run the review, to end up having the privilege log, and also it does touch everybody, right? Whether it's the lit support person that's actually either concatenating fields, or it's the person that is looking at the different priv searches that you're running across your data, or even at the end is when you've got your partner looking at that Excel spreadsheet that they're going to turn around and just say, hey, this is incorrect, go back and fix that, right? It touches so many different people, which makes it very costly and imperfect.
Okay, thank you, Christine. And so when it comes to solutions to help address some of these challenges, we feel very strongly that Matter Analytics is a great technology to help with exactly that. And Matter Analytics is a technology that's been built by folks that use it every day. So it's really is sort of developed by experts for experts to help accelerate a lot of these review activities. And one of the things that we've done to really make this simpler for organizations and really help enhance workflows as opposed to creating entirely new workflows and really trying to change behavior is to develop an application that lives right inside of Relativity. So we have a very seamless integration right inside of Relativity and Relativity 1. That means that the data stays where it is. That means that folks continue to review documents as they always have, but now they have new insights and new capabilities to help really kind of advance that cause. The application accelerates and prioritizes review in a number of different use cases. Obviously, today we're going to be really focused on privilege review. The application also has capabilities for personal information identification, or PII, to help accelerate those reviews, whether it's redaction or it's data breach. So a lot of capabilities in the product, but privilege is definitely probably the most, I think, talked about and interesting use case that we're talking to our clients about today. And one of the key things here is really to help reduce privilege review volume without sacrificing recall. It's very easy to say that I'm just going to use different terms, or I'm going to take a slightly different approach. But if that means losing privileged documents and missing things that need to be on that privilege log, then that's obviously not a good sacrifice or a good thing to balance. So maintaining that is really kind of our big mandate in the development of the application. We'll talk about why the application is so good at doing exactly that. It's also an application that helps mitigate risk. We provide a lot of insights, not just at the beginning where you're setting up your review, but insights throughout the review. So you understand how folks are kind of entering and exiting communication, what their role is, are they attorneys, are they third parties, and that can help provide a lot of helpful tools there, as well as some tools to really help with addressing some of the inconsistency issues. So we'll talk about that as well. And then last but not least, really providing an advanced footing on the privilege log. And we'll talk about and show you what that looks like, but it includes things like name normalization, which is sort of definitely a necessary piece, but but also some exciting things in terms of auto reasons that we're generating to help really describe why a document is privileged to really give folks a head start on that privilege loss. We'll show that in the application. So how does it work? So that's a big question, and hopefully we can go through here and you can get a real sense for its strengths compared to other techniques and why we can do some things that other applications may struggle with. And the first one here is being able to automate the identification of people and organizations. So who in my data population is a member of the client organization? How do I identify in-house counsel? How do I identify outside counsel, legal agents, opposing counsel, anybody that's going to have a role in priv assessment for your privilege review? Second is really important as well. This is where our structured analytics really comes into play. So we have some very advanced structured analytics that not just have an ability to email thread, and we do that very well, and do name normalization, and we do that very well. But we have an ability to understand every single email header in the data population, as well as separating headers from message segments. So this allows us to do things like discover when attorneys are communicating versus when they're mentioned, and we can do that at the top of the message, or we can do that in the bottom of the message where there's no metadata to work with. So we'll show you a little bit about how that works in the application. And third, and this is a really important piece, we've performed privilege identification for organizations who are doing work in their hosting provider's environment, helping them develop solutions to identify those documents across hundreds of matters, many diverse industries, hundreds of millions of documents have gone through that process. And so the benefit of that is that we have been able to train models, pre-trained models, to help identify legal concepts. There's, I think, over 500 concepts that we can identify with high accuracy, identify law firms that are being mentioned in the population. We have nearly 1,800, or I think it's nearly 2,000 now, law firms that we can account for in the data populations. So that's really giving organizations an ability to leverage our experience, our history in doing this work, and really make this very push button. Additionally, one of the key things with priv review is not just what are the concepts I'm interested in, but what is the information I don't want to include in my search. So we've actually pre-trained models as well through our experience to identify disclaimers and boilerplate language and email footers and things that are commonly sand traps for your keywords. And so this really helps narrow the amount of responsive the privileged documents that are returned, again, with trying to really balance that recall and make sure that we're able to preserve the documents you're looking for. And then fourth, being able to auto-generate inputs that are going to be a part of your privilege log. Name normalization, certainly, that's an important one. There's a lot of manual work that goes in there, and we think that we do this very, very well and provide a more reliable result than some of the other technologies out there. Privilege reasons, though, is something that's very specific to matter analytics. So we're able to actually understand the direction of communication. Is it a client messaging an attorney? Is it an attorney providing an attachment to a client? Are they talking to legal agents? And turn that into a description or a reason that can be factored into your description and ultimately get you to that place on your priv log that today requires a lot of Excel gymnastics and all kinds of things. So anyway, we're really happy to be able to help organizations with those solutions. Okay, so obviously all the features in the world sound great, but how does it work in practice, and what's sort of a real world example? So we've got a good case study here. We've been able to do a comparison with matter analytics against many different data populations, against sort of the traditional priv screen approach, and been able to demonstrate in every single instance a very meaningful reduction compared to the alternative, or compared to what is essentially kind of the status quo today. So in this example, there was a data population of about 545,000 documents. The priv screen pulled back about 213,000 documents, and again, that's using keywords, that's using names and email domains to try to email addresses to try to find the priv actors in the data population. Utilizing our approach, we're able to actually return just under 52,000 documents. So that's a big reduction compared to the alternative. That's a 76% reduction compared to the priv screen. And that's 161,000 documents that didn't have to go into that second pass priv review. And that's all without sacrificing recall. In this instance, I think we had close to, if not 100% recall in the results that we pulled back. Mileage will vary in terms of reduction, in terms of the other details, but in every single comparison we've done, we've again been able to demonstrate meaningful reduction, very strong recall, and on top of that, I think the majority of the comparisons we've done, we've been able to reduce the priv volume return by over 50%. So it's a really strong capability to give your teams to really help reduce that amount of priv volume that's going into that second pass. Okay, so with that, it's time for us to hop over to Relativity, and we'll do a live demo of the application. All right, so I'm going to hop back here, look at a document list, and we'll start here from the list. So Matter Analytics is right inside of Relativity, which is something that was really important to us as developing a product to, again, meet folks where they are, help enhance the workflows that they're doing today. So the application lives in Relativity. It's a tab, which I'll show you in a second. And our results are automatically generated. The fields are generated. The results get right in there to help folks be able to then prioritize review. And Christine, I know this is something that's been an advantage, I think, in some of your experiences. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that's benefited your customers and be able to provide that right inside of Relativity.
A lot of our partners really like the fact that Matter Analytics is a tool that's built right within Relativity, because there's a lot of pushback in having their clients go into like an outside visualization tool to get the results that they're looking for. So having it built into Relativity has really allowed for it to be a part of their existing workflows, right, which can be rather linear, but the tool has allowed for all of the different features within the tool have really just weaved right into their workflows and have, enhanced their projects tremendously.
Okay, thank you, Christine. That's really helpful. And so let's go ahead and click on Matter Analytics. So this is the way that folks access the application and do all of the work. So this is our set list. And so this is the different analytics jobs or analytics runs that have been run inside of this workspace. The application can do a lot. We have the ability to do, again, things like threading and name normalization. We do some interesting things with name normalization that we call entity analysis, but it's really about understanding the organizations as well as the people and providing some neat ways to utilize that information. But near duplicate identification, text duplicate identification, PII, language identification, so a whole host of things that you can do in the application. But today, our primary use case is going to be the privilege analytics. So with privilege analytics, the journey to get to results really starts with name normalization. That's a very important part of the application's ability to understand who people are. So when you create a new set inside of Relativity, you're able to name it. So I'll just say name normalization for priv. Pick a saved search. Again, you can grab any saved search from your Relativity workspace because we're right inside of Relativity. Pick reviewer data, and then you pick an algorithm. And so here we're going to go ahead and choose name normalization and entity analysis. And again, this is about understanding who's in the data population as well as the organizations. And so if we look down here, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to be able to dictate which normalized fields you can generate, and if you're thinking about your priv log at this stage, which fields you want to incorporate there. The other thing that's nice is we can do a full recursive analysis of all the people in an email at the top or at the bottom, whether they're in metadata or not. And that's really powerful, certainly, to make sure you have a good handle of everybody that's in the message, the full cast of characters. But additionally, you can come in and you can profile people as they come in based on their email domain. And so this is a really powerful way to address a common part of the priv screen, which is email domains. So if you know what domains you're looking for, you can add them here, dictate which function should be assigned to those individuals as they're pulled through. We can say I want lawfirm1.com to be identified as outside counsel, and perhaps you want to have another folks.com be profiled as opposing counsel. So different ways to use our different functions in the application. Out of the box, you've got a lot of common ones here in terms of opposing counsel, government agencies, third parties, You can customize these, add these, and really develop a nice way to get a big head start understanding who's in your data population. So once you've decided which domains add up to which role and which function and the role they play, you just click Save and Run. And then what we do is we generate entity profiles. And this is where you get to make some decisions and control the inputs that will go into privilege identification. So if we look at entity profiles, we're pulling out two different types of entities. We've got people, we've got organizations, and this is to help you get a real good understanding of who's in the data and what organizations are in the data. We are pulling folks out of the bottom of email messages, so wherever they're found or discovered in the email header, they're going to get a place here in this knowledge base. And you're going to be able to see the functions that were auto-assigned based on our name normalization run. But obviously, in-house counsel is a little tricky. These are people that have the same email domain. You can't rely on that as a way of identifying them. So you can go into individual profiles. You can bulk update as well, but you can make some changes at an individual level, as well as learn a little bit more about these individuals. So Kim Ward here, right away, we get to see the different organizations that she's attached to and based on the domains that we've discovered for her. If I come down into the table below, we can see all of the name variants and email variants and all the things that we've grabbed and pulled together to represent Kim. So back to the name variants issue and challenges and the sort of the surprises that may come up in the data population. We're going to do our best to pull this information together and really give the teams a good understanding of all the different ways that Kim appears in the data population, including personal email addresses and so on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark Kim as in-house counsel. Easy as that. And we've got some great ways to deal with many in-house counsel at once, but this is a good way to make these decisions on an individual basis. Now that I've done this, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take a look at some of our organizations and see if we have any surprises in that. So if we look at the organizations that have been extracted from the data population, a couple things to note. First, we're going to try, as we extract these domains, to understand who they are, and the application does that for you. So we're going to, right away, try to identify the presence of law firms based on a library of nearly 2,000 law firms. We're going to identify personal email domains. We're going to look for government organizations, educational institutions in the data population, and auto-identify those to help you just get a head start in understanding who's here. But law firm is obviously the most appropriate for us today, and this can be very helpful because, again, we're looking at not just the top of the header, we're not looking at the metadata, we're looking at all of the different headers in the data population, and we've been able to demo to some of the firms that are on here and actually have them realize that they are in the Enron data population. They didn't know because they weren't in the metadata, and we've been able to do that automatically. And so through here, you can go through and understand the different law firms that have been captured from the Enron or from your data population, get a sense of who's lurking. Maybe they're outside counsel, maybe they're in-house counsel, but it just provides a lot of good upfront detail in terms of who's in the data population. So in this case, maybe we discover that Thalen's in here, and Thalen is outside counsel or was co-counsel at some point. You can even add descriptions here to help folks get a better understanding of who these folks are. And the nice thing about these profiles is they're portable. So the name normalization details, the information that goes in the profiles, goes in the organization profiles, these can be carried over to your next matter and really help expedite the starting position for your subsequent matters and give folks a real big head start. But in this case, there's only one person here, but I can still go ahead and grab the one profile that's set up here. And I'm going to say I'm going to edit this selected profile, and I'm going to make them outside counsel. Let's do that. Okay. So this provides, again, a means of making decisions about people and about organizations and really make sure that you've got a good handle of who's here and try to make sure that you're getting ahead of any surprises that may come up in the data population. So now that I've done this, now I'm ready to run privilege analytics. So this is the point where you can now get to the good work of identifying the privileged documents and leveraging a lot of the things that we've already, again, built into the application to work in a very push-button way. And the nice thing here is that when I create a new set and I want to do my privilege analytics run, took my data set that I want to analyze. Maybe it's responsive data. Maybe you're doing it at the beginning of your matter and you just want to get all this analyzed right out of the gates. We've done a lot of thinking and a lot of work for you. And so I think this is one of the big advantages of having this be developed by folks that use these applications, is that we've already given a lot of thought to everything from the defaults, what the settings should be, to really, with a click of a button, address 80 to 90% of the matters that you're going to have to manage. And Christina, I know this is something that
is worth mentioning here is the learning curve is really low. And I think that's really important when it comes to using an application and being comfortable with the results. And, I want to note that, our clients absolutely love that part about matter analytics. And there's just so much thought that has gone into making the algorithms run push button, right? You don't have to worry about what you're putting into your search. The system knows what you're looking for. And, for email threading, for instance, it even it gives you so many different options for customization like this one, but you can literally just create your saved search, throw everything in there, save and run, and just move on. And it's going to give you results that you are going to be able to actually use.
Great, thank you, Christine. And with Priv, it's the same. And we've gone through and we've already given the application instructions on, again, what's going to address 80 to 90% of the use cases. You can simply hit save and run and get a very strong result, or you can come down here and customize some of the details. So for instance, here, you can decide whether or not folks that we're identifying as third-party waiver or third-party communicators is right. You may want to add another custom function, or maybe you want to remove one of the ones that we've already prescribed as a part of the job run. We also auto-identify documents with large email distributions, which can be a form of Priv waiver, at least something that needs to be considered as a part of waiver. You can adjust our presets. Right now it's a 10. You can also add additional functions that may be attorney client communicators. Maybe you want to add folks in the mix that are more sort of on the confidentiality side, like board members and things like that. So you have an ability to come in and edit these, but we've already gone through and done a lot of this work based on our experience. We already have the Priv reasons developed so that the application knows that if it's coming from an attorney and it's going to be, you can add again additional types of functions to customize these. But if it's coming from in-house or outside counsel, it's being sent to somebody in these fields and as a recipient function of client, then we're going to give a particular auto reason to that. So this is a really, I think, important part of the application. It's something you fully control. You can simplify this, you can expand it, you can customize the language, add your own functions and do everything you want. But we've really developed this in such a way that, again, we're going to be able to address most of your use cases, and you can come in and just hit save and run. So
I just want to say one other thing about that, Jason, sorry. But with the auto reasons, the one thing that I love about that the most is getting everybody on the same page beforehand is really difficult. So a lot of the times I would find myself just running a search, and then the case team would have 7 different choices to just say the exact same thing, right? But the fact that you have these auto reasons allow you to just get yourself organized from the beginning, right? And if it's set in a way, and again, a lot of these are things that we're already seeing inside of privilege logs, it allows the team to look at the documents differently from the beginning. And I think that's a really big way to just jumpstart that review.
No, that's great. And yeah, and consistency, right? Being able to make sure that on each matter, you have a game plan. You've got a roadmap that's already predefined. You can carry this information on both your profiles as well as, your rules to really make sure that next matter is going to feel a lot like the last matter and help make sure people are moving, as quickly as possible. We also have auto reasons that you can customize based on the way people are mentioned. And that's, I think, a really exciting way. With our conditions change a little bit, you can decide whether you want to know if a lawyer's in a document author or document mentioned. But again, we've already given you a really great head start. And so your thinking around this is really about, is there anything I want to customize? Is there anything I feel like I should tailor? But we've already given you just such a great starting position. So the next thing, when the analytics is run, and it runs with threading and name normalization, by the way, because it's an important part of our review experience, and I'll show you what that means once we get into a document. But when you run the application, one of the nice things that we do is we provide reports that are really going to help illuminate a lot of things about what the application found. So I'm going to click on this run. This is a job that's already completed. So we'll take a look at a set here. The first thing it's going to tell you is how many documents were analyzed, just information about what it is you analyzed, the custodians, the time frame, the file types. But then you can get into the individual summary cards and get a lot more information. This is what the application is really doing. So it's doing things like help identify inclusive documents during threading with very nicely articulated inclusive reasons, very helpful for prioritizing review. But with privilege analytics, this is, I think, a really important report. So the first thing it's going to do is tell you what percentage of your data population is potentially privileged. And so that's going to give you right out of the gates an understanding of what is the review effort going to look like here, and that includes families. And then as we come down here, we're going to be able to see what is the top tier, because we actually prioritize the documents based on a tiering system. So we'll give you a way of jumping into the attorney-client communications, then look into the attorney mentions and the general legal topics. These tiers are mutually exclusive because they're family-level decisions about what's the highest tier in my family. But then as you get into the document-level decisions, you've got a lot of neat things you can use to actually intersect. So for instance, attorney-client communication, where we're also identifying legal topics, that might be a real hotbed if you can move those to the front, versus where you may have attorney mentions or law firm mentions, which may be more or less interesting. So you have some options there. We also provide ways of understanding the individuals that we're identifying. So who's causing a lot of the third-party waiver issues in the data population? How many third-party communicators versus broad distribution waivers do I have in my potential privilege set? And then I get to see the different people that have been identified, the top 10 attorney-client communicators, top 10 attorney mentions, and the privilege reasons that are being assigned. So a lot of detail here, and we've really tried to focus on the most actionable information, the questions we get most often, to give everybody the benefit of that experience.
I think that the reports are super helpful because, in the past, you would just give a document count. Like, these are all the documents that we found that are privileged. Like, go ahead and go review them. But this offers so much information into the detail of what's actually inside of those documents that it's a really great planning tool, right? When you're sitting down with your case team, because it focuses on so much of that actionable information that you can, at that point, triage that privilege review and put the right people on it that need to be looking at it, or just understand what's there and a little better. And you can save them and you can send them off. And at least for me, I'm more of a visual learner. This type of information would go a long way with me. And so I think with a lot of the case teams, I felt that if I had something like this, that the conversation, like, it would just be an easier way for me to get my point across, right? Because I have all of this information that I'm providing them in a very easy, digestible way. It's not complicated. It's completely thought out, and it's something I can put in their inbox, right? Because you can export them as PDF. So I think that these are super helpful.
Excellent. Well, let's take a look at some documents now, because that's where a lot of the fun part happens. Because up till now we've been working to help identify the priv documents, but really the review experience we put around the reviewers as they move through the documents is really important. So I'm going to hop back to my document list here. So again, the fields that we're generating happen automatically. And in fact, those reports that you just saw, you actually have an ability to get those results in a preview capacity, meaning you can understand the percentage of priv or the percentage of PII or how much threading reduction you're getting before anything is actually pushed to the workspace. That means that you don't have to, because from a licensing perspective, there's different licensing models, but nothing gets tallied against the license unless the results have been put into the workspace. You can get all that information in your hands to make a decision before you decide to commit to the results. And so being able to preview that information is a great way to really understand the value you're going to get. But when you do merge the results into the workspace or commit to the results, again, the fields are going to create automatically. You're going to get all the tagging We have all of our threading information, our name normalization detail, the functions that relate to each individual. As I come out further though, these are some important details. So this is going to be our participant field. So here we have two people communicating at the top. They're the ones in the metadata. We've normalized them, which is great, and can show who they are. But here we can give you the full cast of characters of everybody in subheaders and submessages in the document, including in this case, in-house counsel. So we got a third party and a client with an in-house counsel somewhere below. And so the application is using that knowledge to generate our priv identification. And so what we're going to do is tag the documents as you see here. So we're going to be able to identify attorney-client communication because Addie's communicating here and she's in-house counsel, but she's in a subheader. We're going to be able to identify those legal topics, law firm mentions, things like that in our tier 3. And then we're also going to be able to give you an additional tag to use to help prioritize the review. Because here, oops, sorry, this is what I was meaning to hover over. We can identify that there's a third party communicating at the top of the message, and that is something that you may need to pay closer attention to. And then we're also going to generate our privilege reasons, which are again going to be based on those conditions that we saw in the job setup. But this is going to give you a really great starting position for that privilege law. Okay, so the tagging, definitely helpful. You can start batching documents, you can create auto batching rules, you can get everybody moving based on those results. But once they're in the documents, we do some neat things there as well. So I'm just gonna click over here.
And honestly, this is the part I'm always really excited about, is the thread viewer, which is coming up right now. And I think that it's like such a differentiator when using Matter Analytics. I know that we're focused on per review today, but it really provides a lot of opportunities for our clients to improve their email content review, whether it's internal investigations, responsive reviews, whatever review you need to do. I really do love this feature because you have everything in one location. And if you're using all of the different features like the content markers and the communication markers, it's very easy to see what's happening, and you're able to very quickly bulk update and code and thread by thread.
Great, thank you, Christine. Yeah, this is something that we've I think have really enjoyed being able to present to folks and get people to start using and getting benefit out of it. And the thread view here is really a way of understanding the entire thread at once, which is really nice because branches of communication happen. Right now, I can see that I'm on this message number 9, but there's a whole other branch here that I could not view if I were just reviewing the document in this state. But if I pull this up, the conversation view down below is actually all of the unique messages from across the data population that have been distilled down into almost a super email where you get to review the whole thread at once. Branches are indented. You've got the list of all the folks that are present. And then another thing that we're doing here is we're able to show you where certain types of communicators are communicating. So in this case, it's very easy to change this, but we've got our red communicator group is our in-house, outside, and legal agents, outside counsel. So this is going to show me where my attorneys are present, and then the blue is going to show me where our third parties are. So right away, even before I read the email or look at my conversation view, I can see that we have attorneys communicating, and we have a branch that ended up in the hands of a third party. And one of the nice things too here is that these derived messages, these gray emails that were not even collected, we can still detect that there's attorneys communicating because, again, we know all of the headers in the data population, or at least all the ones that we've been able to detect, and have been able to featurize those in a way that really helps you avoid some of those accidental misses where there was an attorney mentioned in the drive message, but for whatever reason, you didn't see that. Maybe it was a name variance or something that wasn't accounted for. So a lot of different ways to use this to help mitigate risk. Another thing is that when we're reviewing, we want to be able to code documents. And so being able to code from this experience is really important. Over here, we have a review layout that includes our privileged fields. And what we recommend is taking our auto reason and actually putting it right into the field that your outside counsel is going to be using, or that outside counsel is using to do the priv review. And that allows them to just edit, accept, or modify as necessary. And again, it's a real good head start on that review. And if you're in edit mode, you can see that our fields are really meant to be Really for the instructor reviewers, it should be read-only. These are kind of system fields. But you still have an ability to use our results and, again, accept, manage those as you're going through and doing the review. And the nice thing is that we actually make it very easy to select specific messages. Again, this is a branch I'm not even on in relativity, but I can select these, edit them, and actually use my privilege fields for my layout to go ahead and tag these as attorney-client communication. And the benefit of our viewers, you can actually tell it to avoid attachments. So propagation is often challenging using these features, and because it's usually all a one-size-fits-all decision about families, about duplicates. But here you can make very surgical decisions when you're applying that coding and move very, very quickly and easily. So all of this is a companion viewer. Reviewers can use as much or as little of this as they want. They may just want to use the map view, which is fine, and just bring it down and review this way to at least understand who's leaving and exiting. Or if you want to use the full experience, obviously you can do that. This is nice because you can click on profiles and learn more about folks and even make changes to their functions as you review to kind of tailor things as you go. So it's just a great way to review and again, review a whole thread at once. In fact, you can actually just advance to the next thread. This is going to skip ahead automatically because it's aware of where the next thread exists. So you're not just pacing through document after document if you've been able to make a decision and assessment already on the thread. So this is an example here of another thread that we've identified, but we've identified it as tier 2. This means that we've identified a mention, in this case, Salma Ryder. She's outside counsel. And we've been able to do this because she's a mention. She's not communicating. These are non-lawyers talking about a lawyer, and we've been able to detect that. And that's why it's not a tier 1, it's a tier 2. In fact, we even found that in a derived message. So we're able to detect that even in a message that wasn't even collected. So it's just a good way of showcasing that, I believe. I can skip to another thread. And here we've got, I think, a good example of some other things going on. We've got some branches, we've got some different communicators that are present, attorneys, and the third parties. So you can see that here in the map, and then down here you can also see that. And the other thing is that we're highlighting the concepts that we're identifying. There's over 500 concepts we're looking for that runs the gamut from different industries, whether they be tech or healthcare or what have you. And we can highlight that for the reviewers and show you exactly why we identified a particular document. And again, do that while avoiding the disclaimers. So a lot of different ways to leverage this to really help advance that review. Okay. So looking at the clock, I'm going to hop out, and now we're going to take a little bit of a look at privilege logs. And we'll take another poll actually related to privilege logs and then showcase something that's coming up pretty soon. And then we'll hop into questions and answers.
Just wanted to,
so,
I'll wait till after the poll. Sorry. No, and going back to what you were just showing us before, it's the features that you were talking about are so important when creating your privilege log. Like we see our clients in complete time crunches when trying to create the privilege log, and a lot of that work is already automated by H5MA. And just having reliable name normalization outputs and all of those other features are just a really big part of, getting it to where it needs to be so that you can have your privilege log done.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Yeah, and so, here we go. So where are you assembling the fields in relativity? So it looks like we got a nice mix here, folks using the hosting application as well as Excel. And that's true, right? This is an area where there are things you have to do to quickly combine fields. You've got to quickly do what you need to do to get that log out the door. One of the things we're really hoping to do is to get folks to use the hosting application more. We really want to increase that number and reduce some of the Microsoft Excel details. Today, again, we can generate the name normalization details. We have our priv auto reasons, and you can use this in combination with your fields that you're coding during review in terms of the subject matter, the attorneys, who is the attorney that needs to be referenced as a part of the privilege log. And then you can export this out, do the work in Excel. But one of the things we're working on right now that I'm really excited about is a new feature that's going to be coming out hopefully later next month, is our privilege log builder. And so this is a module that is going to allow you to do a lot of the stuff that you've traditionally had to do in Excel and keep it in relativity. Use templates, use fields, use information that's going to really help make you move quickly and get more repeatability and reusability out of what you're doing. And so with this, it's going to be a new tab in Matter Analytics. You'll be able to create new logs, pick a saved search of the documents you want to include in your log, name the log, use templates. Again, this could be really helpful, especially for corporations that have a portfolio of matters and want to have more uniformity around that. And create the log. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see something that looks like a document list, but it also looks a lot like an Excel file, right? And we provide ways of actually allowing you to edit things directly here and get a lot of insights about what it is that you've added to your log. You'll certainly see the participants and all the color coding of who they are. But another important piece that we know is a challenge is how do you get all of the fielded information that you've captured and the hard work you've done there and build recipes around columns that you want in your Excel file. And so one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to give you a great new way to create combined columns right inside of Relativity. And this comes through by being able to say, what is the column name that I want to have in my ultimate Excel file or the output of my priv log. You'll be able to create rules. The rules for those fields are going to be things you can make conditional. So you can say, ooh, for PowerPoints, I want to do this. For Word documents, I want to do this. And then be able to just add fields. Use an @ sign to pick the fields you want to join. Use free text. Just create a nice recipe for what it is you want to do. Again, you can make that conditional based on different file types. And then be able to change formatting, change the case format, change the way the values are going to be separated. And just do all that here and don't have to worry about trying to finagle with Excel formulas and everything else. And that's just, I think, a really great way to do this. And then you can test, even before you do this, you can see how the results work. Look at the documents that are being returned. How are these rules actually playing out in practice? Be able to correlate, specific fields to the values they're returning. And this just really, I think, provides an exciting way to do more in Relativity and really limit the amount of just craziness and headaches that happen trying to wrestle with Excel files. All right. So with that, I'm going to hop back to our slide deck, and we're going to, just going to slide on the Priv Log Builder, but we're going to take questions.
Hi, Jason. We have a couple of questions that have already come in from the audience. The first one is, how quickly could my case team be reviewing non-privileged content after running privilege analytics?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, again, because recall is such an important factor, and really what I mean by that is making sure that you've got good coverage around your privileged documents, we're able to get you reviewing those documents straight away and be able to separate the potential or presumptive privileged documents into its own work stream and start to focus on the responsive non-pop priv. And so, I know we've seen lots of instances where producing quickly is of paramount importance. And so finding those documents as quickly as possible is really key. And that can be done same day. There is computational work that needs to happen behind the scenes. So it does take, some amount of time to run and analyze documents. But really, for your average case, you should be able to get going on that same day. There is a bit of refinement work that you need to do. You got to make sure you identify your outside counsel, your in-house counsel. Again, this information is reusable, so in subsequent matters, it'll be faster for the same corporation. But generally, same day. All right. And Patricia, any other questions?
Yes. Our next question is, could privilege analytics eliminate first pass privilege review altogether?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And many organizations have a review workflow where they are pairing priv review with a responsiveness review. So they're having sort of their first pass go through and make decisions and determinations on, is this document responsive, is it privileged, and then those documents go into a second pass review. And what we've been able to demonstrate, again, that recall piece is so key. And really the proof's in the pudding. So it really takes organizations an ability to compare this against what they're doing today to get confidence there. But we've been able to demonstrate that we definitely can. And so I think that's really an exciting benefit of the application, and really provides organizations to a way of focusing on responsiveness review, get folks moving faster, right, through response review, because they're not focused on priv. They don't have to think about priv, and let the application do a lot of that work for you. And by the way, you can start doing the priv logging, really straight away, which is great. So you already kind of know what that population is. You can start going into that second pass review right away while the responsiveness review is happening in parallel.
Awesome. Looks like we have a few more coming in. The next question is, can my firm run a proof of concept to test Matter Analytics?
Yeah. So we have, I think, a really generous proof of concept model. So we allow any organization a month and up to 100,000 documents, and that allows you a chance to use on a real matter compared against real data. If there's matters that are bigger than that, we can obviously work with you to discuss that, because ultimately we just want you to see the product and be able to prove it can do what we're talking about. And that's all, no commitment, no charge. And the installation's fast. If you're in Rel 1, or if you have an on-premise version of Relativity, the installation generally takes about 50 minutes. So it's a really quick application to get up and running, and you're off to the races. So yeah, we love these proof of concepts, because ultimately it I think gives folks a chance to really understand what's possible.
Great. The next question is, what is the average amount of time it takes to run through H5 Matter Analytics for smaller and larger document populations?
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is we're using the Relativity Agent framework, so throughput is managed by that. So we have sort of minimum system requirements that just require a couple of agents to do the work that needs to happen. But you can definitely add that and increase throughput, and that's both for Rel 1 as well as for on-prem Relativity. But generally, the privilege analytics is doing a couple things. It's doing threading, it's doing name normalization. But one of the most computationally intensive pieces is the concepts that we're identifying and the classification that's happening there. But generally, you're looking at, with minimum system requirements, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50,000 documents per hour. But you can throttle that up, up to 8 agents, and be doing well over 100,000 to 200,000 documents per hour. We have matters that are in the 1.6 million document range that have taken really a couple of days. Do it over the weekend and get folks started on that Monday. So lots of speed. Oops, PowerPoint just collapsed. Okay. Interesting. But a lot of things that, your average matter is going to be, again, same day. So it can go very, very quickly.
Great. The next question is there any automation built in to validate against the non-potentially privileged set, sample reviews, etc.?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the application itself provides a lot of detail in terms of what it's doing, what it's identifying. But this is something that we really, defensibility is one of the, I think, key benefits of working with H5 is our experience here in helping develop validation protocols and helping you get comfortable. So whether it's helping you understand what it would take to validate the results and be able to gain comfort internally, or even to be able to attest to it to other organizations or yourself or other team members, we can really help provide a lot of guidance there, which I think is again a very big benefit of working with an organization like H5 who does this stuff every day.
It looks like we have time for one more question. The last question will be, do I have to do the full workflow, or can I just use the tier 3 legal topics plus an STR?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our name normalization is, I think, a very powerful way to identify the attorneys, the third parties, the organizations that are communicating. But you can just use our tier 3. It's actually, you can run it as its own algorithm. And the benefit of that is you're getting the ability to avoid the disclaimers, you're getting the ability to avoid the boilerplate language in those pre-trained concept algorithms. So if you're looking to just sort of get your feet wet, using that plus your STR to do name searches and email address searches is a great sort of middle ground, which combines the two. So that's definitely an option. And again, you get the advantage of all that sort of work in history that we've done to take care of the terms and the concepts.
it looks like we're at time. So we'd like to say thank you to Jason and Christine for such a wonderful presentation today, and all of our attendees. And please check your emails. You'll be receiving some follow-up information about H5 Matter Analytics and Privilege Review. And until next time, thank you all and have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Take care.